this question that I want to tackle tonight, the question of, do all religions lead to God? Are all religions the same? I think has a number of underlying principles within our society that create a faulty conversation, like my conversation with my friend Tom. Because if we look at all world religions, if we look at whether all religions lead to God, we have a number of serious problems. And here are the problems that I want to outline tonight. Now, you may have heard of the story of the sixth blind man and the elephant. It goes something like this. It was 6 men from India, learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl, "God bless me, but the elephant is very like a wall." The second, feeling of the tusk, cried, "Oh, what have we here? So very round and smooth and sharp, 'tis me, 'tis mighty clear. The wonder of the elephant is very like a spear." The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, thus boldly up and spake, "I see," said he, "the elephant is very like a snake." The fourth reached out with eager hand, and felt about the knee. "What most this wondrous beast like is mighty plain," he said, "is clear enough the elephant is very like a tree." The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, "I'm the blindest man can tell. What this resembles most, deny the fact who can. The marvel of the elephant is very like a fan." The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, than seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope, "I see," said he, "the elephant is very like a rope." And so these men of India disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. You see, this is the idea that our society has. All of the religions are just grasping at different parts of the same animal. But because we're grasping at different parts, we're seeing different aspects, although none of us has the whole truth. It's kind of like this.
Meet Jay.
Hi, my name is Jay, and I had 6 religions.
When Jay says all religions are the same, he means it, because he tried a lot of them. He was born Catholic, then switched to Protestant, then explored Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventists, Latter-day Saints, and Taoism.
But I passed on them.
Then he joined Islam, prayed 5 times a day, and celebrated their holidays for 2 years. Then he stumbled upon Sikhism.
It resonated well with me.
So he became Sikh, and shortly after, he became Hindu. But that's not the end of it. Later on, Jay found Judaism, and now is exploring the idea of becoming
Jewish.
But when you ask Jay, why are you switching so many religions? He'll say,
I'm not. All religions are like fingers pointing to the same moon.
Except people, he says, spend too much time focusing on the fingers, but not the moon.
That's 1 minute. See you tomorrow.
Together by a guy called Nas Daily. And what he does is he goes around and he interviews people, specifically in the Philippines, and he puts together videos like that. So what are we supposed to do with that? How do we respond to that? Is religious idea, is our worldly perspective like an ice cream flavor? Is it just a preference that we choose one over the other, not really knowing? Can we have 6 religions? Well, I don't think so, although our society likes to talk about it in this idea. It's kind of like this. You've probably seen the coexist bumper sticker, or the picture of Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna walking with the quote from the thinker and philosopher Ram Dass saying, "We're all just walking each other home." This is the idea within society in terms of cultural and religious pluralism. Here's the main problem I have with this. The fact is that not all religions even claim to lead to God. So the statement that all religions lead to God is faulty from the beginning. Let's look at a few. Let's look at something like atheism. Now, arguably atheism, while some would argue that it's not a religion, it is a worldview perspective. It answers those broad questions in terms of how we perceive and live in the world. Well, atheism doesn't believe in God. In fact, atheism just says that you're a product of time plus matter plus chance. You will die, and so destruction and oblivion are it. So atheism isn't claiming to lead to God. Well, what about Buddhism? Well, Buddhism, if not atheistic, is at least non-theistic in the sense that traditional Buddhism, philosophical Buddhism, does not believe in a God, a higher power in that sense. In fact, in Buddhism, the ultimate goal is to eliminate your personality in order to become one with the universe, to break the cycle of samsara, of life, death, and rebirth. Your consciousness is just ultimately to be absorbed into the universe. It's not claiming to lead to God. Likewise, Islam, although it does have a promise of paradise, if you look into the traditional Islamic literature, isn't claiming to lead you to God in that sense. Allah is not in heaven because Allah is still too transcendent even in the afterlife. So it's not claiming to lead to God. Hinduism, much like Buddhism, has the cycle of karma, of life, death, and rebirth, but the ultimate goal is the emptying of oneself in order to become one with the universe, in order to seek nirvana. It's not claiming to ultimately lead you to God. Now, arguably, Christianity is the only religion, is the only worldview perspective that's actually leading you into a personal relationship with God and leading you ultimately to God. In the end, we are going to be with God in the new heavens and the new earth. When you look at the claims of all the major religions, all of them don't even claim to lead to God. So the claim that all religions lead to God, or that they are somehow all the same, doesn't actually respect what those religions say about themselves. In order to illustrate this to you, let me tell you a little bit of a story. A number of years ago, I was in India. In fact, believe it or not, I had a short-lived Bollywood career. That's a presentation for another day. And this particular summer, I was in New Delhi, and I'd found my way to what's referred to as the Grand Lotus Baha'i Temple. Now, if you don't know anything about the Baha'i faith, what they believe is that all religions do lead to God, that each religion just has an aspect of the truth, and ultimately, it's leading to the same place. And while I was walking around the Baha'i Grand Lotus Temple, I ran into one of the only other white guys there. He was a guy who was originally from California, but was studying at the Lotus Temple in order to become a monk, in order to become a Baha'i monk. And he immediately came up to me, because we both stuck out like sore thumbs, and he said, "Hello, nice to meet you. My name is so-and-so, and I'm Baha'i, and I believe that all religions lead to God." I said, "That's very interesting." He said, "My name's Wesley. I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and I believe that one way leads to God." And immediately he went, "Oh, no, I can't accept that." I went, "Hold on a minute. You're excluding me." And he went, No, we want to include everyone." But even his own statement betrayed himself. Now, this is why apologist and speaker Ravi Zacharias says, anyone who claims that all religions are the same betrays not only an ignorance of all religions, but also a caricatured view of even the best known ones. Every religion at its core is exclusive, because like my Baha'i friends, even the inclusivists have to exclude the exclusivists, making them exclusivists. And Christianity sometimes, it gets a bad rap for being, those intolerant Christians who just say they're right and everybody else is wrong. But if we actually look at some of these religions, if we actually look at some of these worldviews, they're all making exclusive statements. Siddhartha Gautama, who we refer to as the Buddha, was raised in the religion of Hinduism in India. He eventually left Hinduism, decrying the caste system and the authority of the Vedas as evil. He was excluding Hinduism as a valid worldview perspective. Similarly for Islam, the Islamic statement of faith known as the Shahada states that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. That's excluding everybody who doesn't believe that there is no God but Allah, or believes in more than just one God, and that Muhammad was his prophet. Similarly, what's known as the Jewish Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one," is an exclusive statement. It means that there are no other gods because there's only one God. Similarly, Jesus in John chapter 14 says, "I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." all religions, if you look into them, have some sort of exclusive statements. And even the inclusivists, as I mentioned before, have to exclude the exclusivists. Now, the second thing that I want to highlight is the fact that religions might agree superficially, but they disagree fundamentally. There might be some ring of truth throughout all religions where we have a common ground. But the fact is, we disagree on some pretty serious issues. We disagree on things like who God is and who we are and why we're here and our purpose, our meaning, our morality, our destiny, sin and heaven and hell. You know, just the small stuff. Don't sweat it. But the fact is, these are serious issues. Now, when I bring this up with some of my friends, especially on university campuses, they say, yeah, but Wes, you don't get it. Because all religions, if you boil them all down, they more or less have some sort of golden rule, some sort of love your neighbor, and that's what unites all these worldview perspectives. Now, to some degree, that is true. You might know the golden rule. Matthew, in his biography of Jesus' life, recorded it when he said, "In everything, therefore, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets." And it is true that there are aspects of this in other religions. In fact, if you look at Buddhism, there's a statement in Buddhism, treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Similarly, there's a mantra in Hinduism, do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. In Zoroastrianism, the Eastern religion, there's a proverb that says, do not do to others whatever is injurious to yourself. And probably the closest one that I could find is Confucius, who said, do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. But friends, there's a distinct difference. It's in the way they're phrased. Jesus's is in a positive, all the others are in a negative. Do not do, as opposed to do unto others. Now, there's a big difference between not punching someone in the face and building someone a hospital. It might be slight, but it's there. This is what I like to say. I say when we come to the golden rule, it's not the similarities that make the difference. It's the major issues. Because you see, Advil and arsenic both come in pill form. But when I have a headache, I'm going to reach for one and not the other for a very specific reason. It's not the similarities that are making the difference in my decision. It's the differences. Now, the other issue is that a lot of people say, well, have you looked into all the religions? I mean, there's something like a few thousand religions. Have you even studied all of the religions to know that yours is the right one? Now, there's an issue here. And this is actually something that I hear often. And Ricky Gervais, the comedian, brought it up with Stephen Colbert on the late night show in February of last year. He said there are something like 3,000 religions that exist today. Unless you've investigated all of them, how can you possibly know yours is right? Now, I find this rather curious because we don't apply this to anything else in life. You know, a homicide detective doesn't need to investigate everyone on the planet to come to the conclusion that the person who is the murderer did the crime. In 1968, when Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, they didn't have to interview everyone in the city to figure out that the assassin was James Earl Ray. They only needed sufficient evidence to show that the person, the perpetrator, was the actual assassin. You don't have to investigate everything. You know, I hear this quote a lot. It's by famous astronomer, cosmologist, astrophysicist, and astrobiologist. There's a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. Carl Sagan, he says, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidences. And this is what people say to me all the time. I mean, saying your worldview is the only worldview that's correct, that's an extraordinary claim. You better have some extraordinary evidence. But the fact is, extraordinary claims don't need extraordinary evidence. Extraordinary claims need sufficient evidence. Think about winning $3 million. Think about winning the lottery. That's an extraordinary claim. Now, what is the evidence you need to prove that you won that? A few numbers. That's not extraordinary evidence, but it is sufficient evidence. You don't need extraordinary evidence to back up an extraordinary claim. You just need to show that your evidence sufficiently fits the bill. Which is why my friend Tim Barnett says that if extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, do hilarious claims require hilarious evidences? Obviously not. The logic's faulty. You and I don't need to spend the rest of our lives studying the thousands of other religions that are out there. That would be a waste of time. For us to be rationally justified in affirming that Christianity is true, all we simply need to do is show that we possess sufficiently good evidence to warrant our belief in it. Enough evidence to be confident in the truth claims that the Christian worldview possesses. Now, if we swing back around, in the video that I showed you, Jay says that all religions are fingers pointing to the same moon. Well, we've seen that all religions aren't even claiming to point to the same moon. So there's some faulty logic there, but some of them are claiming to point in completely different directions. But that assumes to say that they're all pointing at the same moon, it assumes that they all have a common goal in mind. So all religions are the same? Are you sure? All of them? Do we really want to go there? What about some of the not so nice religions? What about the Agori, the Hindu sect that are priests of the Hindu god of death, Kali? The Agori are open cannibals. They not only are nudists, which is fun, but they're regularly publicly intoxicated. They, after they eat human bodies, they burn them and cover themselves in their ashes. They also regularly eat their excrement. Do we want to say that the Agori are a valid worldview perspective in terms of pointing to God? What about the ICGJC, the Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ, a branch of the Hebrew Israelite movement, who are disgustingly and openly racist, who say that the black race, specifically Africans who were brought over to North America for the slave trade, are God's chosen people and everyone else should be slaves of them. That their women should be raped and their husbands should be murdered. Are we going to say that they are a valid worldview perspective to lead to God? Or let's touch a little closer to home. What about ISIS? If we're saying that all religions are true, what about ISIS? Are they a valid way to God? Now, if you want to say no, I have to ask the question, why? What dividing line are you drawing? Where's the line in the sand? Is it personal preference? Well, I don't like those. But that's extremely subjective, because ISIS would say, well, we like it. When we make statements, we have to be consistent. And lack of consistency is the first sign of a failed argument. Now, let me finish with this. Let's say that last night, I'm a bit of a nerd, I came up early and I spent the evening at the library here at Brock. In fact, I did such a good job that I spent the entire night reading all the books. I read the books from sun up to sundown, and when the sun came back up in the morning, I read every single book in the library. Everything from Tolstoy to C.S. Lewis to One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. I've done it all. And let's say I came here this evening and I said, you know what, guys, I just read all the books in the library. And I've come to this conclusion. All the books are saying the exact same thing. All of them. I mean, they all have words, they all have punctuation, they all have grammar and letters and numbers. And so they're saying the same thing. All of them. Everything from Mein Kampf to Dr. Seuss. Now, would you say, man, that West guy, he's a genius. I don't know if Power to Change is paying him, but he needs to be paid more. No, you'd probably say, what on earth is that guy talking about? But that's what people do with religious perspectives. Religious perspectives are claiming vastly different sometimes even inconsistent things. To say they're all just fingers pointing at the same moon doesn't respect the fingers themselves, doesn't respect what the actual worldview perspectives are claiming to begin with. Because you see, all religious worldviews are grounded in one of three things. They either say that salvation is found pragmatically, i.e., do this and you'll be saved. Or they're grounded experientially, i.e., feel this and you'll be saved. Or they're grounded intellectually, i.e., know this and you'll be saved. But in the end, it all comes down to your own will to get one of those things or a combination of them done. To live up to the standard of the doing or the feeling or the thinking. Now, if you're saved by your standards, you will always fall into the trap of self-righteousness. You'll start to look down on people who aren't living up to your standard, who aren't as holy as you are. Now, on the other hand, if you're failing to live up to those standards, sure, you'll be humbled. You'll be able to empathize with people, but you'll never reach your goal. You'll never reach the end mark. And you'll always feel empty. But you see, the Christian faith is unique in the sense that it's not based on your actions, on the way you act or the way you feel or the way you think. Because all that puts salvation into your hands. It turns it into moralism. And moralism is a dead, rotten, stinking thing. And this is the difference between the gospel and what we see in other world religions. You see, dead religion says, I obey, and therefore I am accepted. The gospel says, I'm accepted, and therefore I obey. The religious way is based on fear and insecurity, not doing or feeling or thinking the right way. But what if your relationship with God was not based and dependent on your record, but on Jesus's? What if your faith and your relationship with God was not dependent on your actions, but on Jesus's? What if the way your relationship and dependence on God played out was not based on your life, but on Jesus's life? It might look a little different. In Jesus' biography that was written by Matthew, he says, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And many will enter through it, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. You know, in John's biography of Jesus' life, we have this short interaction between Jesus and the disciple Thomas, where Thomas approaches Jesus in despair because Jesus has just talked about leaving. He's talked about going away in the context of predicting his own death and resurrection. And Thomas expresses, almost exasperatedly, he says, Lord, we do not know where you're going. In response and in compassion, Jesus looks gently at Thomas and he says these words, I'm the way, I'm the truth, and I'm the life. And he says, if you have ears to hear, you're invited. You see, it's not about whether you're smart enough, or whether you're holy enough, or whether you're religious enough, or whether you're attractive enough, or whether you go to the University of Toronto or not. Oh, sorry, did I say that? Or whether you have your life together or not. Jesus says, lay these things down. Let them go and come to me. Now, if this is an exclusive claim, which it most definitely is, it's arguably the most inclusive, exclusive claim there is. Because it's a personal, undeserved invitation, and it sits at the heart of the Christian worldview. Not one that tolerates you, not tolerates who you are, but accepts you in spite of who you are and loves you too much to leave you where you are. Jesus says he's the way, he's the truth, and he is the life. He says, come to me and find rest. Now, I would put to you tonight that the Christian worldview is true, that the truth claims of Christianity stack up. Now, if that is true, then we have a serious decision to make. Because you see, Jesus made some pretty audacious claims. He made claims to be God himself. And then he predicted his own death and resurrection, and he validated those claims by doing it. And people who rise from the dead have more credibility than people who don't rise from the dead. And you see, if the truth claims of Jesus were true, and then he validated them by doing the ultimate act of defeating death, then it means we have a decision to make. We have a pretty serious decision to make. C.S. Lewis, in talking about the Christian worldview, said that Christianity, if not true, is of absolutely no importance. But if it is true, it's of infinite importance. He said the only thing it cannot be is of moderate importance. Now, I would put to you tonight that Christianity is true, which means that it's an exclusive statement. It means that the other ways are not true. And I, as a Christian, am not the only one making that claim. Arguably, everyone is making that claim in one way or another. But what it means is we need to come to the bridgehead. Because if truth is truth, then it may not always be convenient, but there's no use in following a lie. So if you're here tonight and you're seeking, if you're trying to figure out what this worldview stuff is, this Christian stuff is, then I would put to you that you need to look into that, honestly. Pick up the Bible. See what it's all about. There are some wonderful P2C people here who would love to talk to you. Please do that. And I work for a subsidiary ministry, Power to Change, called Ultimate Questions. And at Ultimate Questions, what we desire to do is we desire to take head on those curious questions you have with credible answers. 2, point to the one who is the ultimate answer, Jesus. So if you have questions, if you have nagging intellectual issues, I'd invite you to either text them tonight so that maybe I can help you. Can't promise. Maybe I can help you answer some of those questions, or just contact me. My contact info is up on the screen. Please don't spam me. Follow me on Instagram. But please do that. If you have questions and they're honest, please be willing to reach out. Because in one way or another, we all have questions. We all have ultimate questions, questions of meaning and morality and destiny and purpose. And until we take those questions head on, we're arguably wasting our life. Thank you.